So I'm reading the introduction, and it says here that to avoid the awkwardness, I guess, of nakedness, Milton would have had either to garb them in flesh-colored robe or to keep them off stage. And like the flesh-colored robe just reminds me so much of that scene from But I'm a Cheerleader. A little bit afraid that just for the rest of this book, I am only going to be able to picture Eve in those costumes from behind a cheerleader. That would be slightly bothersome, I think. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put in a little clip. This bitch empty. Yeet! Apparently, like early. Oh, hello. Hello. Hi, you wanna be in the video? You're in the video, congratulations. Apparently, like, aliens was something that early Christianity was actually concerned about, which I never considered that. But yeah, they were worried about the idea of other life on Earth, which is actually kind of interesting. Like, yeah, if God created not just us, but also other creatures, what implications does that have? But oh no, those are very expensive. Fuck you. I'm sorry. You know how cats are. My edition of this book, which is the Penguin edition, includes a poem written by Andrew Marvel about Paradise Lost, and it's like very enthusiastic and all, and I absolutely love that. More books should do that. It makes me more enthusiastic to read the book as well, to see somebody else loving it. And then there's also this. I think it was the same person who wrote the introduction, has just taken a rant, like a full-on diatribe against rhymed verse. Like this isn't nothing in this rhymes. And apparently this person is very, very pleased with that. Really, it's surprisingly harsh for a classic Penguin edition. He really, yeah, he really doesn't like rhyming poetry. One thing I'm curious about is like, it's established that hell really, I mean, it's a prison for the fallen angels, but it's a very, very shitty one. Like, we are obviously shown that Satan has absolutely no problem getting past the guards, and once he gets past the guards, it's explicitly said that the doors stay open. Now, presumably this is to welcome people in, but my question is, couldn't the fallen angels just have, like, gone to a nicer place? Because they wander around for a bit, explicitly looking for a nicer place, but all they find is ice and fire and, you know, hellish stuff in hell. But they look for it within hell. They never leave it, even though, like, I think they could. I mean, the universe is pretty big, like other entities, slash spaces like night and chaos, which are not very nice, but not as bad as hell, and night and chaos are sympathetic to Satan. So, like, couldn't they have just built like a little nice garden community? I don't know, like not hell. Though of their names in heavenly records now be no memorial, blotted out and erased by their rebellion from the books of life. This is really interesting because one of the things that I love the most about Paradise Lost is that it really doesn't make God seem all that sympathetic. I also don't like Satan, spoiled little brat, but like Satan is very teenage angst, daddy issues, rebellion-ish. Not a big fan of him, but God is like, yeah, not great. And this is really interesting because apparently they kind of blot out the rebellion and they blot out the people that took part in it. And that is a very well known, or it's like a staple of the dystopian genre, like erasing history, changing it. That was the job of the main character in 1984, which is the archetypal dystopia. So yeah, heaven doesn't seem so great, to be honest. While we're on the subject, another thing that kind of concerns me is that in hell, God leaves absolutely no possibility for redemption. Like, he allows them to dig themselves deeper into their own hole, by, for example, letting Satan fuck up the Garden of Eden. But like, there's things they can do to get worse, but there's really nothing they can do to get better. Like, they rebelled and that's it, even though they're immortal. So their potential for growth is pretty much limitless. But he just throws them all together in this environment. And Satan explicitly said, of hell, the place where there is no good for which to strive, like no good for which to strive. They can't, like, they don't have the possibility to be better anymore. Like, I'm not even gonna say good, but just better than they were. I do think that that's by design. Like, God made it that way, which is bit death penalty-ish. Couple of lines where Satan debates inviting Adam and Eve to hell and making them rule there, giving them space for their offspring, etc., etc. And that's just such a fun idea to me. I really hope that there is like a spin-off novel of Paradise Lost, or like fan fiction of the Bible, that actually does this, where Adam just convinces Adam and Eve to go with him to hell, and just, what would ensue there. Oh, and I also wrote in the margin, showing the dark side, we have roasted marshmallows, which is very 2012 of me. Love that. I would say John Milton is pretty philosophical, but he also low-key wrote philosophy. Others sat on a hill were tired, in thought more elevate and reasoned high. Of providence for knowledge, will and fate, fixed fate, free will for knowledge absolute, and found no end. In wandering mazes lost, of good and evil must they argue them, of happiness and final misery, passion and apathy, and glory and shame, vain wisdom all, and false philosophy. Yet with a pleasing sorcery could charm pain for a while, or anguish, and excite fallacious hope, and unobdured beast with stubborn pain. Thing is, I'm not actually sure if he's roasting it or not. Like, he explicitly calls it vain wisdom, but like right after he said that it's false philosophy. So there is a philosophy that isn't false, but all of the things that he mentioned is kind of, I mean, he mentions a lot of things. Like, this covers a lot of the topics that are discussed in philosophy, so I'm not really sure what his stance. And even about the false philosophy, he does say that it does show him pain for a while, so not totally useless. I don't know. I can't really figure this out. I just think it's funny coming from Milton. I'm gonna kind of skip over it because, oh boy, but the relationship between Satan and like the gods of hell, sin and death. What the fuck? Like, I know that, like, also reading the Greek classics, and this is inspired by that. Incest isn't a huge deal, like, you just kind of gotta ignore it and deal with it, but this is a clusterfuck. Like, I honestly, I had to read it like twice to figure out exactly what happened. Like, ooh, there. Mm-mm. I absolutely love the imagery of the wall just hanging from heaven by a golden chain as like a little pendant. I think that is absolutely gorgeous, and I really hope there's art of it. I think that's probably my favorite like image in the book so far, and there's been quite a lot of good imagery. I'm actually really enjoying this so far. God being a dick instance number kind of lost track at page 53. He's like, oh, I'm going to be grateful towards the human, because after all, it is Adam and Eve who did it, not all of his humans. And then he's like, I'm going to be grateful. It's just that humankind and all of its children are going to die. Like that, no biggie. Before Jesus offers to sacrifice himself. It's like, where the fuck did the grace come in, man? What the fuck? Here's another interesting thing. Jesus like contradicts this, right? He says not everybody should die because of what Adam and Eve did. And that's seen as like a good thing, as appeasing thy wrath and ending the strife of mercy and justice in thy face is current, blah blah blah. But I do think it's really interesting that contradicting God and saying, hey, don't you think you're freaking out a little bit too much? Like, take a night of sleep, think about it, calm the fuck down, is seen as positive, like as reasonable, which saying that anybody could be more reasonable than God, and that, contradicting his judgment in that way is good, is like interesting. I can't figure out what Milton thinks of God, because he tried to portray him in a good light, but I really, there's a lot of things that contradict that. Now, of course, I am looking for those things, because those things contradict the status quo of God is good. And there are also a lot of hints in the text that Milton does think of God as a positive thing. Like, he respects God and he loves God and all that. But sometimes certain things kind of shine through the cracks that make me suspect that Milton did also have his doubt about God, which is very interesting because it is a Catholic book. Remember how I could only picture Adam and Eve in those weird costumes for But I was a cheerleading? Yeah, it turns out Adam has a mullet. So Adam and Eve are not the elegant heavenly beings that they should be in my head. F. There's this part where Satan confronts some of the angels guarding Adam and Eve in the garden, and it really just reminds me of a Shakespeare play with the soap opera aspect. It really just sounds like actors meeting each other at another person's wedding or a high school reunion, and it's just so funny. I'm struggling to take this particular bit seriously. The dynamic that Satan has with the angels is really interesting, but also just it's very soap opera-ish, and honestly, in this case, the format doesn't really help it, because, I mean, just anything written in this format of, verse, I think it's going to have an extra touch of the dramatic in this ace, at least. So anything that happens that's actually dramatic is at risk of becoming too dramatic and becoming more comedic than serious. Also, this grand realization is me just being stupid, because logically I know that the caveman had facial expressions and that those facial expressions really weren't that different from ours, but reading this and seeing facial expressions described that I still see on a daily basis is so weird to me. This book is so old and we still emote in the same way. We really have been doing it since a very long time. I'm not going to make any scientific statement that are no doubt going to be wrong, but we've had the same facial expressions for a very long time. And I, for one, would like to start a petition to get some updates, get some patches, fix some bugs, specifically about like sarcastic facial expressions. We could do better. We should invent some new ones, I think. The e-boys are really, I mean, I think they've signed a petition with like I think I don't have TikTok, I just watch Curtis Connor videos, so they're doing a great job. They read Paradise Lost too, and they were really inspired by it, I think. Also, Ingalls have canonically more than 2 wings in Paradise Lost, and I love that. I love the like terrifying, cryptid, non-humanoid depictions of Ingalls. I think this one is still supposed to be humanoid, but I just love art that thinks a little outside of the 2 wing, white skin, 2 eyes, like, you know, the typical Angle box. Also a line in here, just kind of mentioned in passing, author of evil, Satan, unknown Toltai revolt. And I think that's really interesting, implying that no one really knew who Satan was before he rebelled. And I think that that's like, I don't know what things were like in, this was written in 16, Milton was born in 1608. I don't know when this was written. What century is the year 16? It's like a century down, right? So 16 is, no, it's the 17th century. It was written a long time ago. So I don't really know what the crimes were like then. I don't know how much Milton knew about crime, but I do think it's really interesting that they mentioned that nobody knew who he was before his crime, because I think that a lot of criminals nowadays also kind of do it for the attention, you know, with the manifestos, the school shooters, the serial killers. Usually, like, if they ever find out who they are, it turns out that they're kind of nobody. There's just this random dude with, you know, usually not a huge social network. So I think that's really interesting that Satan was kind of in that position. I don't know, like that makes me curious though. Like, is this a thing that was around in the presumably 17th century? I'm really going to have to learn to do that if I want to study English. Oh boy, I'm legit dumb as a brick. Love that. I really cannot take the word cancelled seriously anymore. Like, the word cancelled, like on the actual internet, has taken on such a, like an off with her hat tone, you know, like the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. I can't. I'm sorry. I, yeah. John Milton, I know you meant well when writing this, but bad choice. So that was me kind of catching up on the notes I have made without filming during the weekend, because my sister and my dad were home, and I talk kind of loudly in these videos because I'm filming this with my phone and the microphone's not good, blah blah blah. So I don't like to film when anybody's home, also because I sound really dumb while filming. Everybody on the internet can see this, but not my fucking family over my dead body. But right now I am home alone, so I'll probably be giving more frequent updates. And I am at book, you can't see it, I think. That's too close to my face. Book 7. Still not great at Roman numerals, but we're learning it practice. Book 7, which means that I have 3 left. But these are like longer than the others, I think, because this does not look like 7/10 of the book, right? Like the thinner bit is what I have left, but still there's not that much different. Then again, there is also a gigantic note section. Like these are all notes. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated. Alright, I reached 2,000 words in my current whip, so time to start reading. I do not have an excuse to put it off anymore. I am enjoying the book, but it's a quiet reading and it always feels a little, you know? But I am enjoying it. I shouldn't complain about it or seem so reluctant. Like, that gives the wrong impression. I am enjoying it. Right, so remember that I said that it was weird that I was over half, but it seemed like I was about in half of the book. Turns out I can't count. So yeah, there's actually 12 chapters and not 10. I'm stupid. Like, this whole thing is really making me question my ability to be an English major. Because first of all, I'm vlogging, reading a classic, like, and second of all, I can't count. And it being Roman numerals is not an excuse because I took 2 years of Latin. I can read Roman numerals, I just can't count to 12, apparently. That being said, I finished book 9, I'm on book 10 now, so we're almost there. And I also know that there's the chapter in which there's like all sorts of visions from the Bible. Like I haven't read the Bible yet, but I grew up like in a Catholic environment, so I think I'm gonna skip over those scenes because I roughly know what happens in the Bible. Like, I don't need all of that. So, nice. Alright, we are very close to the finish line. I am now beginning book 12. Book 11 was indeed like a summary of the Bible. I actually didn't end up skipping it because it also interjected some commentary from Michael the Engel. So, you know, that's useful to read, I guess. So yeah, almost there. E fini. I'm done. The last chapter was like really short. So that was it. I don't really know what my thoughts are. My thoughts are that I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It's pretty well written. I really like the imagery. You know, I'm not Christianity's biggest fan, but the aesthetic, they've got that down. The art in churches, the architecture, it's all absolutely gorgeous. And reading this book, I can see, you know, why. Like, that's definitely a trend. The aesthetics in this book are very pleasing. I enjoyed that. As for, you know, something like a little deeper, I also think this book's main strength is definitely its portrayal of God. It's a lot more nuanced than one I have been expecting, and two, than people usually portray God. I feel like, at least in my town, people actually talk more about Jesus than they do about God. But whenever people do talk about God, it's always in a very distant way and in a very, I mean, he can do no wrong, you know, he's God. But I feel like this book takes more of a nuanced take. It it doesn't say that God is bad or anything like that. Some people in the introduction suggested that. I don't think that's what Milton was intending to say, and I also don't think that that's what he did say. I don't think that the God in this book is bad. I just think that he does a couple of bad things, and that's what makes it interesting. That would make it nuanced. I don't think that this book gives any sort of black and white judgment about anybody in it, really. Not about Satan, not about Adam and Eve, which is also something that I found surprising. You know, there were definitely some sexist elements to this book, which is, you know, natural considering the time and all that. But I was actually surprised by some lines and some attitude, especially the one that Adam took towards Eve, that were like surprisingly kind towards Eve. Like, she really wasn't treated that badly, and she was respected as her own person. Of course, she is seen as inferior to Adam and to every other dude. Um, but she is seen, like, she isn't seen as an irredeemably garbage person. You know, at some point in the book, Adam says that, but that's really just because he's, like, understandably pissed about, you know, the situation and he's upset. But apart from that one tirade against her, like Adam's very nice to Eve, and even the narrator is with the context of the time and with the sexism that's unavoidable there, like they're, okay, they're nice to her. Which was surprisingly nice to read. Um, so yeah, I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would, which is very pleasant. Also just a good sign for university in general, because I was really scared that I would hate all the classics. It, isn't totally reasonable anyway, because I've already read classics for fun and I've enjoyed them. But being told what to read has never been my biggest strength. Like any time in high school where they told me what to read, I didn't actually read it. I just picked a book from the reading list that I had already read, didn't bother rereading it, just wrote a couple of lines on that, and that was it. I didn't really read anything for school except one book, Tirza by Arnon Grunberg. Um, I read that, didn't really like it. Point is, reading for school is not my biggest thing, but this gives me hope. Like this experience taught me that I might be able to learn and enjoy it, which is great for an English literature student. Kind of jumped into that without knowing if it would even work, which I still don't do, but it's a good sign. So, peace. Then, with God of all his works, created you, August. Hmm? Yes, you chunky little baby. Wow. You have paperbacks that very easily get these creases along the back, and then you have paperbacks who really don't. And for some reason, these penguin editions always crease very easily. Maybe it's just the black, but I think it, whatever this cover is made out of. And I like it. I like when books look like they've been read. But yeah, this is pretty extreme. Can you focus? Oh, I hate filming with a phone, but I'm not paying for an actual camera. Meow.